Hi there, my name is Anna Anderson and I am a freshman at Georgia College and State University. Today I will be hopefully educating my viewers on generalized anxiety disorder versus simply feeling anxious. To do this, I am going to propose some questions to help us guide our research and our education. So the first question is there a difference between generalized anxiety disorder and simply feeling anxious? The second is, can anxiety disorder be misdiagnosed, and if so, how common is misdiagnoses? And the third is, what can we learn from real people with and without anxiety disorder? And the last question that I'm hoping to answer is, how does advocacy and awareness affect people who are struggling, and what are some solutions for people struggling with feelings of anxiety or people who have general anxiety disorder? So to answer the first question, yes. There is a very big difference between generalized anxiety disorder and feeling anxious. In one study published by Biomed Central, we learn about multiple mental health disorders, including PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and SAD, which is social anxiety disorder. The study concludes that there is a difference in what each one looks like neurologically in the brain. While noting similarities, each one looks extremely different in individual brain scans. Therefore, we can learn that having feelings of stress and having generalized anxiety disorder not only have different symptoms, but also look different in the brain. In one quote, it says, "Anxiety is when you feel stressed and can be sweaty and maybe even cause fits of panic. But GAD is when a person experiences symptoms like numbness, tingly feelings in the toes or fingers, hyperventilating, rapid heart rate, and frequent panic attacks that usually come into effect after a minute of feeling minor to major anxiety." To answer the second question, yes, general anxiety disorder can be misdiagnosed. In fact, it's extremely common. Many psychiatrists have trouble deciphering between depression and GAD. And in order to avoid misdiagnosis, it is super important to know the distinguishing characteristics between anxiety disorder, depression, feeling anxious, and panic disorder. You can do this by educating yourself through independent research using sites like the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, the ADAA, and the National Institute of Mental Health, the NIMH. The only real way that we can understand what it is like for somebody who has GAD is to get a first-hand account. We do this by conducting interviews. Next up, I have some interviews with some of my favorite people to help educate viewers on generalized anxiety disorder and feeling stressed and anxious. Hi, my name is Anna Anderson and I have generalized anxiety disorder. To answer the first question, yes, I have felt anxious in my life, and before being diagnosed and before my GAD showed up in my life, I did also experience fits of anxiety and fits of stress that definitely were not generalized anxiety disorder. To answer the second question, yes, obviously I have known people with generalized anxiety disorder, and I myself have generalized anxiety disorder. And so that gives me a very unique perspective. And I do know the difference between generalized anxiety disorder and feeling anxious. Generalized anxiety disorder is, it's more of a chemical misfiring. I like to think of it that way. Whereas feeling anxious happens in a person's life when they need to have that extra energy and the effects that anxiety gives a person. An example that I like to use is a time when you're supposed to have anxiety is when you are being chased by a bear, and anxiety gives you that adrenaline to run fast, get away, just run first, think later, freak out a little bit so that your body knows that you are in a life or death situation. Whereas generalized anxiety disorder, it's a chemical misfiring because it happens when you are not being chased by a bear. It can happen in a drive-through line. It can happen before you walk into a class. It can happen at the most random times, in the most random of situations. And they come fairly out of nowhere, these fits of anxiety and anxiety attacks. And you constantly feel a little bit anxious all the time. I do. I cannot speak for everybody because everybody's experience with GAD is different. But that, to me, is how they are different. For the third question, regarding advocation and treatment, I think that treatment is a very personal experience, and it varies based on the individual. For me, I know that counseling and therapy have worked my entire life, since I have been diagnosed in the 6th grade. And I have anxiety surrounding medication. And so I always kind of knew that for me, I wanted to gain coping mechanisms so that I could deal with feelings of anxiety and anxiety attacks and panic attacks on my own, without the need of a medical assist. But that is not to say that medicines do not help. And if that's what an individual person needs to feel better and to feel like their best versions of themselves, then that is their own personal journey. And in regards to advocation, I think that it's just really important to spread knowledge and research based on personal experiences with it, and also based on scientific material, like the neurological brain scans, and the differences between being stressed and what that looks like, and GAD and what that looks like in the brain.
To answer question 1, yes, I have felt anxious before. Typically, it comes on in times of uncertainty, especially if I have like a big test in the morning or something big coming up that I'm unsure about. To answer question 2, yes, my girlfriend has generalized anxiety disorder, and I'd say the main difference to me is the level of irrationality associated with it. I think everyone feels anxiety at some point in their life, but it's just a matter of whether it's like irrational anxiety or uncontrollable anxiety, which if it spirals and it's something that is completely uncontrollable, I'd say that's more so of a disorder rather than just general anxiety. To answer question 3, not so much from research, but I guess I'd say from personal experience. I guess the best way to treat a general anxiety disorder is to kind of just understand how to deal with it and how to keep yourself grounded. Because I know that a lot of times it can make you feel like the world is ending, and helping or having someone or even yourself with tactics that can help you just get back down to earth and make sure you're feeling okay is probably the best way to deal with it.
Hi there, my name is Emily Urbisfield. I'm 20 years old, and I'm going to be answering some questions about anxiety. Yes, I definitely have anxiety, something I struggle with quite often, and I actually take medications for it, and I definitely can tell when I'm anxious. I get rapid heart rate, and I definitely feel less focused and feel overwhelmed and have constant, feelings of worry. Yes, I know multiple people that have generalized anxiety disorder, and I would say the main difference between GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and just feeling anxious is the chronic feeling of worry, and just feeling like you're always having the constant fear of having to have everything like planned out, and just constant worry about the future, and also just always having the feeling of, like worried thoughts and stuff like that. I don't know exactly how to explain it, and say like feeling anxious, it obviously goes away, and it's not always like, it can be more about certain things or like certain events, whereas like GAD is like a chronic constant feeling that doesn't go away as easy or isn't settled as easy. So I would say one of the most effective forms of treatment that I could think about would be talk therapy, just overall making sure that we know that talk therapy is an option for people, not just of mental disabilities, but also just generalized, like people on a day-to-day basis that could benefit from therapy and counseling. I think that there's kind of a stigma around therapy, and I feel like if we make it known that it's not just for people that are struggling with mental health issues, that it would just be a lot easier to advocate and help people know that it's okay to struggle and that there's options. And I think if we start telling people about GAD from kind of a younger age, maybe in like middle school or end of elementary school, it could help increase, the understanding of what anxiety is and how we can kind of cope and learn strategies and tactics that can help you kind of deal with things. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Now I know what you may be thinking. Is there a solution for this? Can you be cured? Unfortunately, the answer is no. There is not one cure for generalized anxiety disorder, and usually people can have this for their entire lives without it ever going away. The way in which we treat generalized anxiety disorder varies in multiple ways. There are support groups that people can attend to feel more seen and to have people they can relate to. There is therapy and counseling, which can be an amazing tool for anyone struggling with GAD or feelings of anxiety. Studies show that talking about your anxious feelings and working through the crux that is GAD can help in creating a sense of normalcy with whatever big feelings anyone may be dealing with. There are also pills like benzodiazepines, antidepressants, and beta blockers, which all have been prescribed to people who are struggling with GAD. Every person struggling has a very different story, and treatment varies based on the individual. I've been diagnosed with GAD since the 6th grade, and I'm 20 years old now, and I live very comfortably going to therapy twice a month and have grown even less reliant on my therapist after learning the coping mechanisms necessary for me to remain calm during fits of panic brought on by GAD. I hope you guys learned a whole lot from this video, and just remember that education never ends. So I have linked some really great organizations that help advocate for people who have generalized anxiety disorder, and where you guys can learn a whole lot more about GAD and also feeling anxious. Just remember, if you or anyone you know is struggling, then please visit one of those sites to just learn more about what you may be struggling with. And just remember that education is the key to understanding and coping. Thank you. I hope you guys had a wonderful time on this adventure with me.